Thank you for joining us on Small Cap Power. Today we're talking to Colin Fisher, Portfolio Manager and President at Stableview Asset Management. He's here to talk about the small cap Canadian tech space and some of the investments that he's made that he's excited about. Colin, welcome to Small Cap Power.
Thanks for having me.
So I want to start by digging into what the investment process and the philosophy is at Stableview.
That's a longer story, but simply put, we focus primarily on Canadian technology companies. We see a great number of Canadian tech deals. There's some of the more what I would call thematic investments that are coming. You saw the blockchain hype come and go. Now you're starting to see the esports come and go. We really don't invest on I would call a story basis. We're looking much more for the core business. Is it real? Is it been developed? Is there a market for it? How is it going to market? And so, we think technology is a great space to invest because of the efficiency, if it's done well, of the capital being put to use and how efficient that capital can be used and how your incremental gains can be created. But there's a lot of misunderstanding in the Canadian tech space, and so there's a lot of stories that come to market rather than real companies. Now in the privates, now that's more on the public side. On the private side, which informs a lot of our investing style. Yeah. So if you invest in private companies, you have to have a much more deeper, more robust understanding. One of the great benefits of investing in private companies is you get to see everything. Mm-hmm. There's no hiding, there's no obfuscation, I know real time, right, what's happening. In the public markets, you're held to quarters, right? So there's a delay. The amount of information is that which has been disclosed. It has to be material. Whereas when you're in a private company, you can do a much deeper dive. Your due diligence is much greater.
The philosophy, the mission at Stableview is to kind of transform the Canadian tech space and educate investors. What's missing there, and what do you hope to change?
Well, it's not so much a philosophy. It's sometimes you sit in a room and you're like, is anyone gonna take care of this? I mean, there's somebody passing out here. Maybe we should help that. And in this case, that's the Canadian tech scene. There's a funding gap in Canada. So it's not so much, we made that as our overarching mission, but it sort of has come over time. And so the funding gap is real, it's deep, and it's seems to be eternal. What we've started to do, so we've put on the tech event in Toronto now since 2014, so I guess we've done it for 6 years now. That was sort of to help educate the capital markets writ large in a more indirect sort of approach to helping the problem. As we've done that now, we see ever more that the education is one portion, but really there's a whole host of reasons why capital is not going in. Some of it is regulatory, some of it is mandate driven. We don't have a lot of mandates to go sub 150 million. There's ever fewer that can go into private space. So we're putting together a company called Garrison Creek, which will be a corporation that will be able to invest in these companies. And many times it's because you have to take a very active role with these companies. So that's what we're doing.
Let's talk about the year that was 2019. What were some of the big hits and misses for you and broadly for the sector?
So we had multiple hits, and we had one miss that we think is a big hit now. Sometimes, in business, as in all things, if it was just up and to the right all the time, then everyone would invest in. But there's heartache and there's hard work and there's heavy lifting. I almost wanted to call Garrison Creek heavy lifting capital. I mean, there's a lot of work that goes into working with these companies. VersaPay is a company that's in the accounts receivable automation space. We helped with Craig clean up the board, get Art Messer on the board, upgrade the board with Sheldon Pollock and Mark Kohler. Now they have Dave Dobson and I'm blanking on one. And just recently that was taken out by Great Hill Partners, a Boston-based private equity firm. It's bittersweet. But for Stableview, we led the financing for 4 or 5 years, probably 5 years at least. That company doesn't exist. And it can't fall on the shoulders of Stableview as a small little player to build these companies. But what's happening is there's a gap past us even further, and those companies are getting taken out. And another good example was at the beginning of the year was Venice Solutions. Again, at a very critical phase of the growth of that company, StableView stepped in. We helped with the funding. We didn't have to be as active with that company. There were a lot of really good pieces in place, but still, that company would have had a very hard time existing but for the very specific period when StableView comes in. And so it's just hit and miss the fact that StableView has become the portal twice to two of the really great success stories of Canadian tech. And so we, again, harping back to the funding gap, that's why we want to do the Garrison Creek. The miss we had that's turning into a hit, like if I were a pilot of a plane and you were getting on it, and I've only ever flown in fair weather, you wouldn't get on that plane. It's like if I started freaking out if storm clouds came or rain or winds, what you want to know is that when the bad conditions hit, I can still get the plane on the ground. Mm-hmm. And so to that point, we had a company, Clarosity, that we had to bring through foreclosure. We sold the assets to iLookabout, and we think this is now just a fantastic company. And we sold it to, and now it's under the tutelage and stewardship of Gary Yeoman. Gary Yeoman founded Altus Group. If anybody knows commercial real estate, Argus is the de facto standard software used for evaluating projects and build. And so he's already built a de facto, or he purchased the Argus software into Altus, and it's now become the de facto standard for commercial real estate. He was also a founding investor in Real Matters, which is now, a fantastic success story, $1 billion. Altus is $1.5 billion. Gary has the knowledge and the stewardship, but so, we have winners, but this time we had to bring it through a very uncomfortable process and deliver it. And for our unit holders, we feel they're going to have an absolute fantastic success. But we also wanted to show as an example that you can put a deal together that leaves money for shareholders and equity holders. One of the real problems in the Canadian tech scene is that there's a dearth of capital. Secondly, there's a dearth of knowledge in the tech space. And the equity and the debt players, I believe, also have quite a dearth of knowledge. And part of the way they deal with that dearth of knowledge is by putting usurious and very punishing covenants on the company. So the interest rates are massively high, massive warrant coverage, massive share coverage. And what it does is it effectively steals the value from the equity side.
And is this typical to the technology sector, or other sectors also go through that?
I don't speak to the others because I'm not an expert in that space, but that's what I see in our space. Yeah. So our banking system understands, and the debt side understands hard assets, real estate, oil and gas, mining. Typically, I've seen quite a few deals. I don't know if on the fringes there's that problem, but on the core of it, we have a deep understanding of hard assets.
Excellent. Absolutely wonderful insights for our viewers. Thank you for your time, Colin.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.